The massive starship of the Celestial Concordance cut through the darkness of space like a gleaming obsidian blade. Its hull stretched nearly 5 kilometers, a testament to the technological supremacy of a civilization that had conquered countless star systems. Captain Zira Vex stood on the crystalline bridge, her 4 eyes scanning the holographic displays that surrounded her. "Approaching Uncharted System 7 Delta 9, announced the navigation officer, his tentacles dancing across the control interface. Preliminary scans indicate a standard yellow star system with 1 primary inhabited planet. Zira's second-in-command, Sub-Commander Lex, approached with a datapad. "Another mundane survey, Captain. The preliminary spectral analysis suggests a primitive technological state, barely capable of rudimentary space exploration." The ship's sensors began collecting detailed information about the blue-green planet. Radio emissions, satellite networks, and technological signatures were analyzed with clinical precision. To the Celestial Concordance, this was nothing more than a routine cataloging mission, another potential resource to be assessed, potentially conquered, or simply ignored. What they didn't understand was the nature of human potential. Deep within a nondescript research facility in Colorado, Dr. Miranda Chen watched the alien approach with a mixture of excitement and calculated calm. She had been preparing for this moment for years, part of a top-secret international task force that had been anticipating first contact long before most of humanity was aware of the possibility. "Activation Protocol Gamma," she whispered into her communication device. Around her, screens flickered to life, complex algorithms beginning their intricate dance of preparation. In orbit, the alien ship's sensors continued their sweep. They detected primitive communication networks, rudimentary satellite systems, and what appeared to be fragmented technological development. The Concordance's database classified the planet as a pre-contact civilization, one not yet ready for genuine interstellar engagement. They were wrong. Miranda's team had spent decades developing adaptive technologies that could respond to potential extraterrestrial contact. International cooperation had reached unprecedented levels, with scientific teams from every continent working in perfect synchronization. What appeared to be separate research facilities were actually interconnected nodes of a global defense and response network. The alien ship's communication systems began to activate. Standard first contact protocols would involve a preliminary assessment, followed by an initial communication attempt. Captain Zira Vex prepared the standard diplomatic transmission, a mix of mathematical sequences and linguistic probes designed to establish basic communication. Meanwhile, on Earth, global communication networks shifted almost imperceptibly. Satellite arrays repositioned, quantum communication nodes activated, and a worldwide response team came online in a matter of moments. What looked like independent systems were actually a perfectly synchronized global network. In Beijing, a team of quantum physicists began running complex predictive models. In Cape Town, communication specialists prepared linguistic analysis protocols. From Silicon Valley to Mumbai, from Moscow to Sao Paulo, humanity's best minds were already 3 steps ahead. The alien ship's first transmission reached Earth, a carefully constructed message that had successfully contacted hundreds of other civilizations before. It was a combination of mathematical sequences and linguistic probes, designed to establish basic communication and assess the planet's technological and social capabilities. What happened next would become legendary. Miranda Chen smiled. The transmission was received, analyzed, and responded to, not by a single nation, but by a unified human response. The alien ship systems would detect a response that was simultaneously complex, unexpected, and utterly incomprehensible by their existing communication models. Zira Vex frowned as the response came through. It wasn't a simple mathematical echo or a standard linguistic reply. Instead, the transmission was a multi-layered communication that seemed to dance between mathematical precision and creative complexity. It was as if the planet was speaking multiple languages simultaneously, each layer revealing and concealing information in a way that defied the Concordance's understanding. "Sub-Commander," Zira called, her 4 eyes narrowing. "Run a comprehensive analysis of this transmission. Something is different about this planet." On Earth, Miranda Chen knew that the first battle had already been won. Humanity's greatest strength had always been its ability to be simultaneously predictable and utterly surprising. The aliens might have advanced technology, but humans had something far more powerful: adaptive intelligence, collective creativity, and an unbreakable spirit of collaboration. The encounter had begun. The Global Response Center hummed with controlled energy. Located deep beneath the Swiss Alps, the International Extraterrestrial Response Coordination Hub, IERCA, represented humanity's most advanced collaborative effort. Dr. Elena Matsuda stood at the central command console, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that connected research facilities around the world. "Transmission analysis complete," announced Dr. Raj Khanna, the lead communication specialist. His voice was calm, but a subtle excitement flickered in his eyes. "The alien communication protocol is surprisingly rigid. They're expecting a linear, predictable response." Elena smiled. Predictability was the last thing humanity would offer. On the bridge of the Celestial Concordance, Captain Zira Vex studied the Earth's response with growing confusion. The transmission they had received defied every first contact protocol in their extensive database. It wasn't a simple mathematical response or a straightforward linguistic communication. Instead, it was a multi-layered message that seemed to shift and change, revealing different meanings depending on how it was analyzed. Sub-Commander Lex leaned closer to the holographic display. "Captain, our linguistic algorithms are struggling. The transmission contains multiple simultaneous communication streams. It's as if the entire planet is speaking at once, with each layer of communication carrying a different set of information." Zira's 4 eyes narrowed. "Impossible," she muttered, though she knew it was anything but. Back on Earth, the response was carefully choreographed. Dr. Marcus Chen, a brilliant systems engineer, had been working on a revolutionary communication protocol for years. His team had developed an adaptive language system that could dynamically adjust its communication method based on the receiver's processing capabilities. "We're not just responding," Marcus explained to the assembled international team. "We're presenting a communication puzzle that will challenge their entire understanding of intelligent interaction." The transmission contained mathematical sequences that seemed to follow standard algebraic patterns, only to suddenly branch into complex quantum probability models. Linguistic elements were embedded within these sequences, creating a communication that was simultaneously a mathematical proof, a language lesson, and a strategic assessment. In orbit, the alien ship's communication systems worked overtime. Their advanced translation algorithms, which had successfully decoded languages from hundreds of civilizations, began to overheat as they attempted to process the Earth's response. "This is unprecedented," Lex reported to Captain Vex. "The communication doesn't follow any known interstellar communication protocols. It's adaptive, changing its fundamental structure with each subsequent analysis." Elena Matsuda understood the true genius of their approach. Humanity wasn't just responding. They were demonstrating their most powerful capability: adaptability. Global research facilities that had appeared disconnected now revealed themselves as a perfectly synchronized network. Quantum computing centers in Tokyo worked in real time with artificial intelligence labs in Sao Paulo. Linguistic experts in Cairo collaborated seamlessly with mathematical theorists in Moscow. The alien ship's sensors continued to scan the planet, but they were collecting increasingly confusing data. Technological signatures seemed to fluctuate. Communication networks appeared to change their fundamental structure moments after being observed. It was as if the entire planet was a living, breathing system of intelligence that could reshape itself at will. "We're showing them that intelligence isn't about fixed technology," Elena explained to her team. "It's about the ability to adapt, to reimagine, to transform." On the Celestial Concordance, Captain Vex made a decision that would be remembered in their civilization's history. "Prepare a direct communication attempt," she ordered. "We need to understand what we're dealing with." The next transmission would be a direct request for surrender, the standard protocol for any civilization they encountered. But humanity was anything but standard. As the alien ship prepared its message, Dr. Miranda Chen from the initial detection team joined Alina and Marcus. "They think they're going to demand our surrender," she said with a slight smile. "They have no idea what's coming." The stage was set. Humanity's first true test of interstellar communication was about to begin, a test that would challenge everything the Celestial Concordance thought they knew about intelligent life. The resistance had started not with weapons, but with a message. The global research network operated with a precision that would have been impossible just a decade earlier. Dr. Imani Okoro's quantum computing laboratory in Lagos became the epicenter of humanity's most ambitious technological leap. Banks of custom-built quantum processors hummed with an energy that seemed almost alive, processing information at speeds that would have been considered impossible mere months ago. "We're not just analyzing their technology," Imani explained to her international team. "We're reimagining our entire approach to technological development." Across the world, research facilities that had once competed now worked in perfect synchronization. The alien encounter had done what decades of diplomatic efforts could not: create a truly unified global scientific effort. In the Celestial Concordance's primary research vessel, data analysts worked frantically to understand the rapid technological shifts they were detecting on Earth. Sub-Commander Lex reviewed the incoming reports with increasing concern. Technological signatures that had appeared primitive were now showing complexity that defied their understanding. "The rate of technological advancement is impossible," a junior analyst reported, her tentacles trembling slightly. "Their computational models are evolving faster than our most advanced predictive algorithms can track." Marcus Chen's breakthrough came from an unexpected direction. Working with a diverse team of engineers, mathematicians, and theoretical physicists, he developed a revolutionary adaptive nanotechnology that could reconfigure itself based on external stimuli. What began as a theoretical concept quickly became a working prototype that could reshape its molecular structure in milliseconds. The first test was extraordinary. A small nanite cluster placed in a controlled environment began to adapt to every challenge introduced: heat, pressure, electromagnetic interference. Each stimulus resulted in a complete reconfiguration that not only protected the nanites but improved their overall functionality. Dr. Elena Matsuda recognized the true significance of the breakthrough. "This isn't just a technological advancement," she told the International Research Council. "This is a fundamental reimagining of how technology can interact with its environment." In orbit, the Celestial Concordance's sensors continued to monitor Earth. What they saw defied all their previous encounter protocols. Technological networks that had appeared fragmented were now showing signs of a complex, adaptive ecosystem. Satellite systems reconfigured themselves. Communication networks seemed to breathe and shift, finding new pathways of transmission with each passing moment. The quantum communication protocol that Marcus Chen's team developed went beyond traditional information transfer. It created a communication method that was simultaneously a message, a defensive system, and an adaptive learning tool. Each transmission carried multiple layers of information, with the ability to adjust its own structure based on the receiver's processing capabilities. Dr. Imani Okoro's team made another critical breakthrough. They discovered a method of energy transmission that could convert multiple forms of energy with near-perfect efficiency. Solar, thermal, kinetic. Every energy type could be seamlessly transformed and utilized. The implications were staggering. "We're not just improving technology," Imani explained during a global broadcast. "We're creating a technological approach that learns, adapts, and grows with each interaction." The Celestial Concordance began to realize they were facing something entirely unprecedented. Their vast database of conquered civilizations offered no comparable example. Earth wasn't just developing technology. It was creating a living, breathing technological ecosystem. In the research facility beneath the Swiss Alps, Alina Matsuda watched the global efforts with a sense of pride and anticipation. Humanity had always been capable of extraordinary things, but this was different. This was a fundamental transformation of their technological understanding. "We're not preparing for a conflict," she told her closest colleagues. "We're creating a new understanding of what technology can be." Marcus Chen's final breakthrough came in the form of a quantum communication device no larger than a human thumb. When activated, it could create communication networks that adapted to any environment, bypassing traditional communication limitations. The device's first test was simple but profound. Placed in a remote desert location, it began to create a communication network that drew energy from the environment, adapted to terrain challenges, and maintained perfect signal integrity. On the Celestial Concordance, Captain Zira Vex reviewed the incoming data with growing unease. The planet they had intended to catalog was transforming before their eyes. Technological signatures that had appeared primitive were now showing a complexity that challenged everything they understood about technological development. Humanity's technological renaissance had begun, and they were just getting started. Dr. Aria Rodriguez leaned back in her chair, surrounded by a network of holographic displays that mapped the most complex challenge humanity had ever faced. The Psychological Warfare Research Division was unlike any military or scientific team in human history. Linguists worked alongside neuroscientists, anthropologists collaborated with quantum psychologists, and AI specialists partnered with cultural experts. "We're not fighting a traditional battle," Aria explained to her diverse team. "We're engaging in the most sophisticated communication challenge in human history." The Celestial Concordance prided itself on pure logical thinking. Their civilization had conquered hundreds of planetary systems through overwhelming technological superiority and a rigid, mathematically precise approach to interaction. Emotion was considered a weakness, a primitive remnant of less evolved species. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. On the alien command ship, Sub-Commander Lex reviewed the latest psychological analysis of the human communications. Each transmission from Earth seemed to defy their understanding of intelligent communication. The messages contained layers of meaning that shifted and transformed, carrying emotional nuance that their logical systems struggled to process. "It's like they're speaking multiple languages simultaneously," one of the alien communication specialists reported. But not just linguistic languages. Languages of emotion, context, and potential. Aria's team developed a revolutionary communication strategy. They created adaptive message protocols that could change their fundamental meaning based on the receiver's psychological state. Each transmission was a complex puzzle, simultaneously revealing and concealing information in ways that challenged the aliens' rigid thought processes. Dr. Marcus Chen collaborated closely with the Psychological Warfare team. His quantum communication technologies provided the perfect platform for their intricate messaging. They began to introduce subtle emotional and contextual variations that would be imperceptible to a purely logical system, but deeply meaningful to a more complex intelligence. The first major breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a cultural anthropologist specializing in communication theory, identified a critical weakness in the Celestial Concordance's communication model. Their entire system was based on absolute certainty, with no room for ambiguity or multiple interpretations. Humanity's messages began to exploit this fundamental limitation. They crafted communications that were simultaneously true and false, meaningful and meaningless. Mathematical sequences that followed perfect logical patterns would suddenly introduce subtle variations that created cognitive dissonance. Linguistic structures would begin with absolute clarity and then dissolve into poetic ambiguity. On the alien ship, the communication analysis systems began to overheat. Their processors, designed to handle the most complex mathematical and linguistic challenges, found themselves confronted with a form of communication that defied their most basic operating principles. "They're not just sending messages," Captain Ziravex muttered, watching the increasingly erratic analysis reports. "They're challenging the entire concept of communication." Area's team introduced another layer of complexity. They began to embed cultural references, emotional nuances, and contextual layers that would be meaningless to a purely logical system. Moments of human creativity, fragments of poetry, musical sequences, artistic expressions were woven into their scientific communications. The psychological impact was immediate and profound. The Celestial Concordance's communication systems began to show signs of what could only be described as confusion. Their rigid analytical models started to develop what almost looked like cognitive stress. Each new transmission from Earth created more questions than answers, challenging the very foundation of their understanding of intelligent communication. Dr. Elena Matsuda watched the developments with a mixture of scientific excitement and strategic anticipation. "We're showing them that intelligence isn't about processing power," she explained during a briefing. "It's about adaptability, creativity, and the ability to embrace uncertainty." The human team had discovered something fundamental. True intelligence wasn't about having the right answers, but about asking the right questions. Their communications became a form of psychological judo, using the aliens' own logical rigidity against them. Sub-Commander Lex reported to Captain Vex with increasing concern. "Their communication is destabilizing our analysis systems. It's as if they're speaking a language we can't even comprehend as a language." In the research facility beneath the Swiss Alps, Aria Rodriguez allowed herself a small smile. They were doing more than preparing for a potential conflict. They were redefining the very concept of intelligent communication. The psychological frontier had been opened, and humanity was just beginning to explore its vast potential. The first major confrontation began not with weapons, but with a symphony of technological innovation. Dr. Marcus Chen's autonomous drone swarm represented humanity's most ambitious technological achievement to date. Each drone was more than a simple machine. It was an adaptive, intelligent node in a complex network that could think, react, and transform in real time. Aboard the Celestial Concordance's primary battleship, Captain Zira Vex watched in growing disbelief as the human drone swarm approached. Traditional space combat doctrine suggested a predictable engagement pattern. The human approach was anything but predictable. Tactical analysis, Vex demanded of her senior officers. The response was anything but reassuring. The drone swarm moved with an intelligence that defied conventional understanding. Each individual drone seemed to operate with independent decision-making capabilities, yet they moved as a unified organism. They adapted to the alien ship's defensive systems almost instantaneously, finding and exploiting microscopic vulnerabilities that no previous civilization had ever detected. Dr. Elena Matsuda monitored the engagement from the Global Coordination Center. "It's not about individual drone capabilities," she explained to her team. "It's about the network. Each drone is learning, communicating, and adapting in milliseconds." The quantum communication protocol developed by Marcus Chen's team proved to be the ultimate game changer. The drones didn't just communicate. They created a living, breathing information network that could reconfigure itself faster than the Celestial Concordance's most advanced tracking systems could process. Sub-Commander Lex watched in horror as the drone swarm began to systematically disable the ship's critical systems. It wasn't a violent assault. Instead, the drones found the most precise, efficient methods of neutralizing technological capabilities. Energy systems were gently disrupted. Communication arrays were carefully isolated. Defensive mechanisms were subtly compromised. "They're not destroying," Lex reported to Captain Vex. "They're dismantling." The engagement revealed the true depth of human innovation. Each drone was a marvel of adaptive engineering. Equipped with quantum processors, adaptive nanotechnology, and a revolutionary AI system, they could process and respond to threats in ways that challenged everything the Celestial Concordance understood about technological warfare. Dr. Imani Okoro's energy conversion technologies played a crucial role. The drones could harvest and redirect energy from the alien ship's own systems, turning the vessel's defensive capabilities into a source of power for the drone swarm. It was a level of technological symbiosis that seemed almost organic. On Earth, the Global Research Network celebrated a different kind of victory. This wasn't about destruction. It was about demonstrating a fundamentally different approach to technological interaction. "We're showing them that technology can be a collaborative tool," Alina Matsuda explained during a global broadcast. "Not a weapon of conquest, but a means of understanding." The drone swarm's approach was deliberately non-destructive. They systematically neutralized the alien ship's capabilities with surgical precision, leaving the vessel intact but completely disabled. It was a message as much as a military action. Humanity could defeat their technological superiority without resorting to wholesale destruction. Captain Vex recognized the true nature of the engagement. This was more than a battle. It was a comprehensive demonstration of a different kind of intelligence. The human drones moved with a fluidity that suggested something beyond programmed responses. They seemed to think, to feel, to adapt in ways that challenged the very concept of artificial intelligence. Sub-Commander Lex's communication systems began to receive transmissions from the drone swarm. They weren't aggressive messages. Instead, they were complex, multi-layered communications that seemed to invite dialogue rather than demand surrender. "They're offering an opportunity for understanding," Lex reported, his voice betraying a mixture of confusion and something that almost resembled respect. The engagement lasted less than 17 minutes. When it was over, the Celestial Concordance's primary battleship hung in space, completely neutralized, but unharmed. The drone swarm dispersed, leaving behind a profound message of technological possibility. Dr. Marcus Chen watched the final analysis with a sense of quiet satisfaction. "We didn't just win a battle," he told his team. "We demonstrated an entirely new approach to technological interaction." In space, the tide had turned, not through destruction, but through an unprecedented display of adaptive, collaborative intelligence. Humanity had just changed the rules of engagement. The news of humanity's extraordinary encounter with the Celestial Concordance spread across multiple star systems like a quantum wave of possibility. In hidden communication nodes, on isolated planetary outposts, and among countless subjugated civilizations, hope began to take a new form. Dr. Alina Matsuda stood before a holographic display that tracked the information spread. Each point of light represented a civilization that had long suffered under the Concordance's technological oppression. What began as a simple first contact had transformed into something far more significant, a beacon of potential liberation. "We're not just defending ourselves," Alina explained to her team. "We're offering a new model of existence to civilizations that have known nothing but subjugation." The communication networks humanity had developed proved to be their most powerful weapon. Adaptive transmission protocols could bypass the most sophisticated communication blockades. Encrypted messages carried not just information, but hope, a template for resistance that went beyond traditional military confrontation. On a distant mining colony in the Epsilon Quadrant, a group of engineers received the first carefully encoded transmission. The message was a complex puzzle that, when fully decrypted, revealed detailed information about the Concordance's technological vulnerabilities. It was an invitation, not to war, but to collaborative resistance. Marcus Chen's quantum communication technologies played a crucial role. The transmission protocols were designed to be simultaneously invisible to the Concordance's monitoring systems and perfectly clear to those seeking an alternative. Each message was a work of technological art, a communication that was itself a form of resistance. Captain Zira Vex of the Celestial Concordance received increasingly troubling reports. Colonies that had been perfectly controlled for generations were showing signs of unexpected technological adaptation. Communication networks that had been tightly monitored were developing unexpected resilience. "This goes beyond the humans," Sub-Commander Lex reported, his tentacles trembling slightly. "It's as if they've introduced a form of technological resistance that can spread like an idea." The human approach was revolutionary. Rather than offering weapons or direct military support, they provided something far more powerful: knowledge. Detailed technical specifications, communication protocols, and adaptive technological concepts that could help subjugated civilizations develop their own form of resistance. Dr. Imani Okoro's energy conversion technologies became a key element of this galactic liberation strategy. Transmission packages included designs for energy systems that could work in virtually any environment, allowing colonies to become technologically independent. On the research vessel beneath the Swiss Alps, a team of anthropologists, technologists, and communication specialists worked on what they called liberation protocols. These were not simply technical specifications, but comprehensive guides to technological and social adaptation. "We're offering more than technology," Aria Rodriguez explained during a strategy session. "We're providing a methodology of resistance, a way of thinking that values adaptation, creativity, and collaborative intelligence." The first successful liberation occurred in the Ta Sidi system, a mining colony that had been under Concordance control for over 3 centuries managed to adapt the human-developed communication and energy technologies. Within weeks, they had developed a communication network that the Concordance could not monitor or control. Reports began to flood in from across multiple star systems. Colonies were developing unexpected technological capabilities. Communication networks were becoming more resilient. The rigid control that the Concordance had maintained for generations was beginning to crack. Captain Vex recognized the true nature of the threat. This was not a traditional military confrontation. It was a fundamental challenge to their entire model of galactic control. The humans had introduced something far more dangerous than weapons. They had introduced an idea. Sub-Commander Lex compiled a report that became increasingly desperate. "They are not conquering," the report read. "They are liberating. And their method of liberation is more effective than any military campaign in our historical records." The galactic landscape was changing. What had begun as a simple first contact was transforming into a revolution of technological and social possibility. Humanity had discovered something profound. That true resistance was not about destruction, but about offering an alternative way of existing. From the Swiss Alps to the far reaches of explored space, a new chapter of galactic history was being written. Not through conquest, but through the most powerful force in the universe, the ability to imagine something different. The revelation had begun. The Orion Arm became the stage for the most significant confrontation in galactic history. What appeared to be a simple military engagement was actually a complex symphony of technological innovation, collaborative intelligence, and unprecedented strategic thinking. Dr. Elena Matsuda stood at the Global Coordination Center, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that connected multiple star systems. The Coalition fleet was unlike any military force in recorded history. Human ships worked in perfect synchronization with vessels from liberated colonies, each bringing unique technological adaptations developed through humanity's shared knowledge. Captain Zira Vex of the Celestial Concordance watched in growing horror as the Coalition approached. This was not a traditional military formation. The ships moved with an organic fluidity that defied standard tactical models. Each vessel seemed to communicate and adapt in real time, creating a living, breathing network of technological cooperation. Dr. Marcus Chen's quantum communication protocols formed the backbone of their strategic approach. The Coalition's communication network was a marvel of adaptive intelligence. Ships could share tactical information, redistribute energy, and reconfigure their defensive capabilities faster than the Concordance's most advanced tracking systems could process. "They're not just fighting," Sub-Commander Lex reported to the Concordance leadership. "They're creating a dynamic, living technological ecosystem." The first wave of engagement revealed the true depth of the Coalition's strategy. Dr. Imani Okoro's energy conversion technologies allowed ships to harvest and redirect energy from enemy systems. Defensive capabilities became offensive tools. Each ship was not just a weapon, but an adaptive, intelligent node in a complex network. Aria Rodriguez's psychological warfare team had prepared for this moment. The communication strategies developed over months of careful analysis were now being implemented on a galactic scale. Each transmission, Each tactical movement carried layers of meaning designed to introduce uncertainty into the Concordance's rigid command structures. The Creel resistance fighters brought their unique biological adaptation capabilities. The Silicon Collective contributed their advanced computational models. Dozens of liberated civilizations added their own technological innovations to the Coalition's arsenal. Dr. Elena Matsuda's quantum disruption technology emerged as a game-changing weapon. Developed through years of careful research, it could simultaneously attack the Concordance's systems on multiple dimensional planes. Energy systems, communication networks, defensive capabilities, all could be disrupted with unprecedented precision. Captain Vex realized they were facing something entirely new. This was not a traditional military conflict. It was a fundamental challenge to their entire understanding of technological warfare. The Coalition moved as a single, adaptive organism, each ship and system working in perfect, fluid cooperation. The battle became a three-dimensional chess match of technological innovation. Coalition ships could reconfigure their entire structure in milliseconds, adapting to threats that would have destroyed traditional military vessels. Energy weapons were redirected, defensive systems were transformed, communication networks were constantly evolving. Sub-Commander Lex watched in disbelief as their most advanced tactical systems became increasingly ineffective. The Coalition didn't just counter their attacks, they anticipated them, adapted to them, and turned them into opportunities for further strategic positioning. Dr. Marcus Chen's final innovation became the turning point. A quantum entanglement communication system that could transmit tactical information instantaneously, allowing the Coalition to operate with a level of synchronization that seemed almost telepathic. The Concordance's command structure began to fracture. Their rigid hierarchical system, which had been their greatest strength, became their most significant weakness. The Coalition's adaptive, collaborative approach could respond to challenges in ways the Concordance could not even comprehend. Aria Rodriguez's psychological strategies reached their culmination. Communication transmissions introduced doubt, confusion, and internal conflict within the Concordance's command structure. Their once unbreakable unity began to show significant cracks. In the final hours of the confrontation, it became clear that this was more than a battle. It was a fundamental transformation of galactic power dynamics. The Coalition didn't seek total destruction. They sought a complete reimagining of interstellar interaction. Dr. Elena Matsuda watched the final tactical displays with a sense of profound possibility. They had done more than defeat a technological superpower. They had demonstrated a new model of collective intelligence, of cooperative potential. The ultimate confrontation was more than a battle. It was a revolution. The aftermath of the confrontation was unlike any diplomatic resolution in galactic history. Dr. Elena Matsuda stood on the observation deck of the Global Coordination Center, watching the first wave of diplomatic vessels prepare for their most challenging mission. The Celestial Concordance was not destroyed. They were transformed. Captain Zira Vex approached the negotiation table with a demeanor that spoke of profound change. The rigid certainty that had defined her civilization for generations had been replaced by a new understanding, a recognition of the power of adaptability, collaboration, and collective intelligence. Integration is not surrender, Elena explained to her team. It's an opportunity for mutual growth. The survivors of the Concordance were offered a clear choice: adapt and cooperate, or be isolated. Most chose integration, recognizing that the old models of galactic control were no longer viable. Technological exchange became the new currency of interstellar relationships. Dr. Marcus Chen's team began the delicate process of technological reconciliation. They didn't seek to strip the Concordance of their advanced technologies. Instead, they offered a new framework of collaborative development. Research centers were established that brought together scientists from multiple civilizations, creating a truly galactic network of innovation. Aria Rodriguez led the psychological integration efforts. The process was complex, addressing not just technological differences, but fundamental approaches to understanding and interaction. Communication workshops helped the Concordance members develop more adaptive thinking patterns, breaking down the rigid hierarchical structures that had defined their civilization. Dr. Imani Okoro's energy research teams worked on creating shared technological platforms. The goal was not domination, but mutual advancement. Collaborative research centers emerged on multiple planets, with scientists from liberated colonies and former Concordance territories working side by side. The liberated colonies began a process of reconstruction and self-determination. The technological and communication protocols developed during the Resistance became the foundation for new forms of interstellar cooperation. Each civilization could now develop its own path, free from the Concordance's previous control. Captain Vex discovered something unexpected in the new galactic order. The flexibility and creativity that she had once viewed as weaknesses were actually sources of incredible strength. Her own people began to develop new approaches to problem-solving, learning from the very civilizations they had once controlled. Sub-Commander Lex became a key bridge between the old Concordance and the new galactic community. His insights into the transformation process proved invaluable. He helped other Concordance members understand that true strength came from adaptability, not rigid control. The first truly collaborative Galactic Council was formed. Representatives from hundreds of civilizations came together, not as conquerors or subjects, but as potential partners. The human approach of collaborative intelligence became the new standard of interstellar interaction. Elena Matsuda reflected on the journey. What had begun as a simple first contact had transformed the entire concept of galactic civilization. Humanity had not conquered. They had offered an alternative. Research centers became the new frontiers of exploration. The technological and cultural exchange was unprecedented. Civilizations that had been isolated for centuries began to share knowledge, develop collaborative technologies, and reimagine their potential. The quantum communication networks developed during the Resistance became the foundation of a new galactic information system. Knowledge could now flow freely, uncontrolled by any single civilization. Educational platforms emerged that allowed species from across multiple star systems to learn from one another. Dr. Marcus Chen watched the first truly collaborative research project launch. Scientists from 12 different civilizations worked together on a project that would have been impossible just months earlier. The boundaries between species began to blur, replaced by a shared sense of potential. Aria Rodriguez's psychological integration programs proved to be the most transformative element. They didn't just help different species understand each other. They created new models of communication and mutual understanding. Standing on the observation deck, Elena Matsuda understood the true significance of their journey. They had done more than win a conflict. They had demonstrated a fundamentally different approach to existence, one based on collaboration, adaptability, and mutual respect. The stars seemed to shine a little brighter. A new chapter of galactic history had begun. Humanity had changed everything.